What's good, guys? It's KY, not Kai the Creative, and as you can see, we've changed up our space a little bit because if you don't turn your perfectly good bedroom into a YouTube space, you're not really doing YouTube right. I wanted to talk about all the accessories and how I rig up my cinema rig for the Sony FX3. Now there's two other ways that I do rig this camera. You can check that link in another video that I've made before, but particularly I want to talk about the Sony FX3. A lot of people don't have access to the FX6 and they want to have the pieces of kit that make this as close to a cinema rig as I possibly can to get all the features that you would miss out on other cameras. So I'm going to show you all the accessories that I will be using for this camera if I was to use it as a cinema camera. We are going to talk about the first thing about this camera. Now every KISS begins with K and every rig starts off with a cage. So this is the Smallrig half cage. Now the Smallrig half cage is great because it allows you enough space to put on the top handle that comes with the FX3. So if I want to use it as a cinema camera and I want to use all the high quality audio features that are on here, I do need to use that top handle with the XLR inputs. And this Smallrig half cage is perfect for that. Now this thing we're going to use is this base plate has a 1/4-20 threads that fit on the bottom of the cage that I just put on my camera, and I'm also going to use 50mm rods. This is so you can mount on different things like a follow focus, a VMAP battery plate, and things like that. For the lens I'm going to use, I'm not using a follow focus, I will be using a VMAP battery later on, but you want to make sure this goes to the bottom of your camera so you can mount stuff on later on. Now the next thing I'm going to use is a Smallrig battery plate. Now this is going to be the thing that's going to hold my VMAP battery on. So this fits nice and gently into the 50mm rods. There are little rod spaces for you to put them inside of there. And the next thing I'm going to attach is the VMAP battery. Now this one's from Newer. It's not as expensive or as perceived to be high quality as some of the other stuff, but it is a very good VMAP battery. I'm not hooking up too many crazy things to this battery for this build. It's just gonna be my monitor and a couple other smaller things, so I'm totally okay not having the biggest battery in the world to hook up to the back of my FX3. The next thing we're talking about, and you knew I was gonna talk about lenses, but this is my 35mm G Master lens. This is one of my favorite lenses for a lot of the fitness B-roll, a lot of the commercial stuff I've been doing in the last little bit. My favorite lens, it's just gonna go on the front of the camera. Nothing super crazy to say about this guy. There is going to be a matte box later on, but this is the lens I'm going to be using. Now this is a side handle by U-Rig, I don't really know what the name is for it, but it's a nice affordable side handle that goes on the side of your camera. It just mounts onto the little mounting points on the back of the cage here. So this is so I could put my lav microphone that's going to go on here. It has a cold shoe on there. And this is one of my audio sources. This is the Sennheiser G4 lavalier mic. Now it's going to use one of the XLR inputs that's going to go onto this top handle here. Now it's going to go on one of the, now it's going to take up one of the XLR ports in my top handle here. But I just want to make sure that's nice and fastened in. So there we go. There we are. That's going to be my first audio source. Now my second audio input is going to be the Rode NT-G4. Usually I would use the MK416 by Sennheiser, which is the microphone that's right above my head, but obviously I'm shooting with it, so I just use my backup microphone, which is the Rode NT-G4 Plus. It has a built-in battery that's in it. Now, you also might want to note that you need spacers for these microphones. Now, none of the top handles for the Sony FX6, the FX3, have enough room unless you're using a genuine Sony microphone. So if you're using like a Rode or a Sennheiser, it's going to be thinner and you have to use rubber spaces. Now, I lost the rubber spaces on mine, so if you're wondering why this is just shifting back and forth, it's because I lost it. In my other rig build, I did use a piece of Velcro to kind of tie that over, but you do want to look at the rubber space on Amazon, which I will put in the description if you guys are looking for those spacers. Now Jerry as a name is a pretty famous name. You have Jerry Seinfeld, you have Jerry Curls, you have Tom and Jerry, and then you have Jerry rigging stuff to your camera rig. So I'm actually going to use this combination of 50mm rods. Now this is I think about a 6-inch rod and this is about a 2. And basically what I'm gonna do is use the larger rod that goes into the top part here that has just enough space for a 50mm rod. And then this is a rod mount. So this thing here, you want to put the B side, or the rounded side, by your camera, just so you don't damage any of your lenses or anything like that. Now you have a smaller 50mm rod, and then I also have a little rod adapter with 1/4-20 thread, so I could also mount a Smallrig cold shoe mount that's onto here. So that could actually go onto this rod right here, and then I could put this right on top of this guy. And then I have your Smallrig monitor mount. This has a cold shoe as well, and that's gonna fit right into here. This frame is a little bit crammed up, but we are gonna go with Old Faithful. This is my Atomos Shinobi monitor, the 5-inch monitor that goes onto my camera. Pretty much all of the rigs I will be using. I probably will be using Atomos monitors for quite a while. And there we have it. We have a jerry-rigged fashion of getting the monitor on there without compromising on the top handle. You do have to make some adjustments in terms of where the rods are to make sure that everything is nice and secure, which I'm probably gonna do if I was on set or anything like that, but this is pretty much what we're looking like so far. Now, it goes without saying, if you're gonna power things up, use something like dummy batteries. That's gonna fit right at the back of here. There's a little D-tap port that's in here. Now, a big saving grace for you guys is using coiled HDMI cables. Now, this is gonna connect from the Atomos Shinobi into my camera. You wanna use a coiled cable because I find that the ones that don't have a coil to them create a big mess, and even a bigger mess than this entire video because the frame is like super claustrophobic. But using coiled HDMI cables is always preferred over using some of the ones that just kind of dangle and hold straight. What SD cards do I use for my FX3? Now, there's two types of SD cards that I use, and one is the Angelbird V90 cards. Now, if you have one of these cards, you're gonna be able to get most of the shooting modes that are on here. It's a fast enough card that's gonna read your 10-bit profile. It's a great card, it's reliable. I've been using these for a little bit, and I do have 2 of these cards. Now, I don't put both cards inside of here because I do have the FX6, but I will use this card, and I have this guy as an incredibly expensive A card. The other card is going to kind of function as your backup. This one is going to be my main card, and this is the Sony Toughcard. This is the 160 gig card. These guys are incredibly expensive, and to be honest, the only difference between this and the V90 cards is that this is going to be able to get you 4K 120 at 10-bit with the all-eye codec that's on it. Most of the other shooting modes are going to be used on the other card. So if you don't want to spend all of that money, you don't have to. You might have to just use the normal 4K version on your FX3, but if you do want to use all the bells and whistles in terms of quality, you're going to want to look at a Sony Toughcard. Now, not many companies make a lot of these, so they are incredibly expensive, and they don't have that much storage space in it compared to how big some of these files get. So it's like a reluctantly meh purchase, but those are the SD cards that I use for the FX3. And the last thing that we are going to talk about is this guy. This is a tilted Mirage system. Now, this is one of those things that help bridge the gap between the FX3 and the FX6 because the sensors are very similar to each other. One of the big things about the FX3 versus the FX6 is that it doesn't have built-in ND. Now, something like this Tilta matte box actually has built-in NDs inside of it. So if you guys see that, I hope it actually shows up. It probably doesn't. It probably just looks bright and darker in my face, but there's a built-in ND filter into this matte box, and it also uses adapter rings for the different lenses that you have. So for me, I have a 67mm lens on my Sony G Master lens, so I just have to screw this to the front. So this is everything set up. This is the Sony FX3 cinema rig build. Now, if you want everything to kind of be built out as if it was a cinema camera, if you don't have access to something like an FX6 or a camera that has all the things that cinema cameras do, this would be what I would use, and this would be the accessories that I would use for this kit. Now, the link for everything is in the description below, so if you do want to pick up some of these accessories, Amazon will give me a small kickback for some of those things that you guys do pick up, but for everything else, there's going to be on something on B&H or anything like that as well. So if you guys do want to pick up some of the stuff in this video, feel free to do that. This is the end of the video. I just wanted to show you guys how I build out this kit and what are some of the accessories I use for the FX3 if I wanted to use it for this function. If you guys want to see more content like this, you guys want to see more gear, tutorials, things like that, leave a comment down below, leave some questions down below. Also leave some feedback. I'm pretty much open to hearing any sort of feedback for some of these videos. I am trying to get a little bit better at making some of these YouTube videos, but that is everything, and I've got to go to bed because I've been recording. This is the 5th time that I think I've done this, so I'm gonna go to sleep. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.